If you're over 60 and you've ever woken up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, or you find yourself wide awake at 3 a.m. even though you went to bed exhausted, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. There's a growing body of research from cardiologists and sleep specialists showing something most people never think about. It's not just how many hours you sleep that matters after 60. It's the exact hour you go to bed. Your heart rate, your blood pressure, your hormone production, even how well your brain consolidates memories overnight. All of it is tied to a specific internal clock in your body. And when you fight against that clock instead of working with it, you end up tired, foggy, and at higher risk for the exact health problems you're trying to avoid. Here's what I want you to know before we go any further. By the end of this video, you're going to know the exact window doctors recommend, why sleeping too early can be just as bad as sleeping too late, and I'm going to walk you through a simple 2-week plan to shift your bedtime safely without shocking your system. Stick around, because the transition plan near the end is the part almost nobody talks about, and it's the piece that actually makes this change stick. Let's start with the basics, because understanding why timing matters makes everything else easier to follow. Your body runs on what's called a circadian rhythm. Think of it as an internal 24-hour clock that controls when you feel alert, when you feel sleepy, and when your organs do their nightly repair work. This clock is driven by two main hormones, melatonin, which rises in the evening and tells your brain it's time to wind down, and cortisol, which rises in the early morning and helps you wake up and feel alert. If you've ever noticed that you feel a strange burst of energy around 6 or 7 p.m., right when you're supposed to be settling down for the night, that's often a sign your circadian rhythm is shifted later than it should be. And if you've ever laid in bed wide awake staring at the ceiling for an hour before finally falling asleep, that's frequently a sign you went to bed before your melatonin had a chance to rise. The goal isn't to force sleep. It's to align your bedtime with when your body is naturally ready for it. And for most adults over 50, that natural window is more specific than you might think. Here's what most cardiologists and sleep researchers agree on. For adults over 50, the ideal bedtime window sits between 9 and 10 p.m. This isn't an arbitrary number. It's tied directly to when melatonin production peaks in the aging body. Research consistently shows that melatonin naturally starts rising around 8 p.m. and reaches a strong peak between 9 and 10 p.m. for most older adults, which is actually earlier than the peak time for younger adults in their 20s and 30s. This is one of the natural shifts that comes with aging, and it's not something to fight against. It's something to work with. When you go to bed during this window, you fall asleep faster because your body is already primed for it. You spend more time in deep, restorative sleep, and you wake up with your cortisol rising naturally around 6 or 7 a.m. instead of being jolted awake by an alarm during a deep sleep cycle. Think of it this way. Going to bed in this window is like catching a wave right as it's cresting, instead of paddling out too early or missing it entirely. Now, here's something that surprises a lot of people. Going to bed too early can actually backfire just as much as going to bed too late. If you're getting into bed at 7:30 or 8 p.m. simply because you're bored or your evening routine has nothing left to do, your melatonin hasn't fully risen yet, and you end up lying there, restless, watching the clock. This is incredibly common in retirement, when evening routines can end earlier than they used to. Over time, this creates a frustrating pattern. You're in bed for 9 or 10 hours, but only sleeping for 6 or 7 of them, and that fragmented restless sleep is often worse for your heart and your mood than simply going to bed a little later would be. If you find yourself in bed by 8 p.m. but not actually falling asleep until 10 or 10:30, that's a sign your body isn't ready yet, and pushing your actual bedtime routine slightly later into that 9 to 10 p.m. window often solves the problem almost immediately. On the other end, sleeping too late, 11 p.m., midnight, or later, creates a different but equally important problem. When you delay sleep past that natural melatonin peak, you're not just falling asleep later. You're compressing the amount of deep sleep you get before your cortisol naturally begins rising around 6 or 7 a.m. This matters enormously for your heart. Multiple studies referenced by the American Heart Association have linked delayed, compressed sleep patterns to higher blood pressure readings in the morning and increased strain on the cardiovascular system over time. Your heart actually gets a break during deep sleep. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure dips, giving your cardiovascular system a nightly recovery window. When you push bedtime later and shrink that window, you're cutting into the exact recovery period your heart depends on most, especially after 50, when cardiovascular resilience naturally starts to decline. This is why so many people who go to bed late still wake up feeling like they never really rested, even after 8 hours in bed. There's also a brain health piece to this that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. The deepest, most restorative stages of sleep. The stages responsible for consolidating memories and clearing out metabolic waste from the brain happen predominantly in the first half of the night. Researchers at institutions like the National Institute on Aging have studied how this early deep sleep window plays a critical role in memory consolidation and long-term brain health in older adults. When you go to bed later, you're not getting less sleep necessarily, but you are getting proportionally less of that crucial early deep sleep stage, because your body still wants to wake up around the same time in the morning. Over months and years, this can mean far less of the deep memory, consolidating sleep your brain needs, even if your total hours look fine on paper. This is part of why so many people in their 60s and 70s who go to bed late notice more trouble with names, misplaced items, or foggy thinking during the day. It's often simply a mismatch between sleep timing and how the aging brain processes rest. So if the 9 to 10 p.m. window is so important, why do so many people drift later without realizing it? A few very common habits are usually the culprit. The first is screen light in the evening. Televisions, phones, and tablets emit blue light that actively suppresses melatonin production, delaying that natural evening rise by an hour or more. The second is caffeine timing. Even a single cup of coffee or tea after 2 or 3 p.m. can measurably delay sleep onset in older adults, whose bodies process caffeine more slowly than they did decades earlier. The third is long afternoon naps. A 20-minute nap can be refreshing, but a 2-hour nap in the late afternoon pushes your natural tiredness later into the evening, making a 9 p.m. bedtime feel impossible. And the fourth is large, heavy meals late in the evening, which keep your digestive system active right when your body should be winding down. None of these habits are things to feel guilty about. They're simply patterns worth becoming aware of, because each one is a small, fixable piece of the puzzle. Now here's the part I promised you at the beginning. The transition plan that actually makes this change stick, instead of just feeling like one more piece of advice you'll try for 2 days and abandon. Don't try to jump straight from an 11:30 p.m. bedtime to a 9:30 p.m. bedtime overnight. Your body won't adjust that fast, and you'll likely just lie awake, frustrated. Instead, shift your bedtime back by 15 minutes every 3 to 4 days. So if you currently go to bed at 11:30, move to 11:15 for a few nights, then 11 o'clock, then 10:45, and so on, giving your body time to gradually recalibrate its melatonin release. Alongside this, start dimming lights and putting screens away about 45 minutes before your new target bedtime. This small window lets melatonin begin rising naturally, instead of being suppressed. Most people find that within 2 weeks of this gradual approach, they're falling asleep faster, waking up less during the night, and feeling noticeably more rested in the morning. So here's the one thing I want you to remember from everything we covered today. Your bedtime isn't just a scheduling choice. It's a health decision that affects your heart, your blood pressure, and your brain's ability to consolidate memories overnight. The 9 to 10 p.m. window works with your body's natural rhythm instead of against it, and a gradual 15 minutes. A time approach is the safest way to get there if you're currently going to bed much later. Minute 18. Of course, if you're dealing with ongoing insomnia, sleep apnea, or ongoing heart symptoms, please talk to your doctor before making significant changes to your routine. This video is meant to inform you, not replace personalized medical guidance. If this helped you understand your own sleep patterns a little better, hit that like button. Subscribe for more evidence-based health guidance every week. And let me know in the comments what time do you currently go to bed, and are you going to try shifting it? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear from you.